the channel, back to our Discworld rereading. Listen, so we are on to book number 8, Pyramids, first published in 1989. The thing that I'm realizing with my rereading of the Discworld novels is that I am learning to appreciate them more and more and more. I read them back in the 90s, basically, when I was a young... You know what, I'm just gonna say teenager. And, I mean, I was 5 years old when this book came out. And I've said before, Terry Pratchett is a reason for why I like the English language, but it's not until rereading the novels that I really appreciate the impact that he had and the nuances of the story. So this story, being trained by the Assassin's Guild in Ankh-Morpork, did not fit Tepik for the task assigned to him by fate. He inherited the throne of the desert kingdom of Jelly Baby rather early than he expected. His father wasn't too happy about it either, but that was only the beginning of his problems. This book is, as you can probably imagine, is heavily influenced by stories of ancient Egypt. It is also heavily influenced by math, by geometry, and what's the other thing that I was thinking? Cannot remember. Now this book is divided into 4 parts, which are obviously, at least 3 of the parts are influenced by writings from ancient Egypt. The first part is called the Book of Going Forth. Second is the Book of the Dead. Third, the Book of the New Sun. And then the fourth, the Book of 101 Things a Boy Can Do. So our main character is Tepik, and he is Prince of Jellybaby, well, as far as he knows, the only son of his father. King Tepisman the 27th. I'll just call him 27. I have problem pronouncing the names. And Tepik is the son of the king, the 27th king, and his wife, Altella. So Altella was herself not from Jellybaby, she was foreign, which is something that the king actually had to kind of fight for. The driving force throughout the story is not just Tepik. Tepik is the main character and he has his own agency. He really does all the things. Minor spoilers. But the absolute main character, the fulcrum, the red line throughout everything to do in Jellybaby is the High Priest Dios. And what Pratchett does with Dios, I love. So, the first part of the story is about Tepik going to Ankh-Morpork to study with the Assassin's Guild, which we first heard about in the previous book, the Weird Sisters, where we met the Fool, who studied at the Fool's Guild, which, in Ankh-Morpork, those 2 guilds, the Fool's Guild and the Assassin's Guild, share a backwall. Now, one is light and airy, full of laughter that, I mean, the voices do. They are fewer the more that the school year passes on. The other is full of tears and gnashing teeth. And Tepik, I mean, he does survive the school. And the way that Pratchett ties in Tepik's backstory with what is happening in present-day Ankh-Morpork, because Tepik is taking the final exam, which honestly is a final exam. Like, the examiner is not allowed to kill the student, but he can influence the student to cause his own death. Which I'm sure is a fancy that a lot of educators have from time to time, and who can blame them? And then, throughout this exam, as Tepik is taking it, we get tied in Tepik's backstory. So we get, like, this is one of the few times that I feel that the backstory or flashback is actually done well, because it explains how Tepik gets to where he is without us having to start in the beginning and working our way through 7 years. Unfortunately, part 1 does also include the death of Tepik's father. And now, I did say that the country of Jelly Baby is heavily influenced by ancient Egypt, and the concept of the king or the pharaoh being divine. And what is divine within the king is passed on to his son upon his death. So when Tepik's father passes away, Tepik knows instantly because he becomes himself divine, with green grass is growing, green vegetation growing wherever he steps down foot. Part 1 does end with Tepik returning to the Old Kingdom. Part 2, that is called The Book of the Dead, is all about Tepik rejoining life in the Old Kingdom and being conflicted. Like, you quite often feel conflicted when you return to your your old hometown. Like, you want to be there, but at the same time you don't quite fit. So that's for Tepik, except for a whole kingdom. Also, being a king, it isn't quite what he would like. Mostly because of dear old Dios, the high priest, who has all the power, who makes all the decisions, and who technically doesn't rule the kingdom, but he definitely rules the kingdom. Every single decision that Tepik does make about the kingdom is overruled by Dios. Like, Tepik would like plumbing. Dios make the plumbers disappear. Tepik orders a proper mattress. For some reason the mattress disappeared before it even reaches Jelly Baby. We do also meet how do you pronounce her name? Petrasi? Yeah. Who was the old king's favorite handmaiden. So he really liked to listen to her sing and play, because the feeling of when she was done, just this complete silence, just immeasurable. The pleasure of her being done singing. We have also been getting a little segment about the greatest mathematician that exists on the disc, which is a camel named You Bastard. Because this entire book is also heavily based on camels, because they are all mathematicians. Also, the recently deceased old king is learning a lot about life beyond the palace, and he's learning a lot about the private lives of the two embalmers, the Master Dill and his apprentice Gurn. I have no idea how to pronounce these names, dang it. And he kind of forms his own attachments to it and to them. And the reason why he doesn't pass on is because Jelly Baby is his own contained thing. Despite being promised and knowing in life that when he passes on, when he dies, he will go into the afterlife with everything that he needs as a king, with servants and food and just everything. The fact is that after death he is bound to his body within the pyramids. And the point, the pyramids, there's a reason why they are the title of this story. The pyramids store time, and they flare off every night. And this becomes a really, really important part. Like, there are parts of this story that I still need another reread to completely understand. This completely went over my head when I was reading this as a teenager. Like, I did not understand. Like, I enjoyed the story a lot, but I didn't quite understand it, and I still don't quite get it, but I do understand it a little bit better. And there's quantum. This book is about quantum. I don't understand quantum, but because Tepik was trying to one up old Dios, he orders the biggest pyramid ever built to be built in honor of his father. The problem is, however, that pyramids affect time and space. And what happens when the pyramid is about ready is that it displaces Jelly Baby itself from time, away from reality of the disc itself already exists on a fold in real space, unfold of what is possible. So for the fact for an entire country within a valley being so unreal, basically, that it's itself is displaced from reality, that is the unreality of the disc. I'm like, fold. But the second part ends with the entire kingdom of Daily Baby to another reality. So part 3, Tapik and Sassy, the handmaiden, are the only ones who are not displaced along with the kingdom, because they were running away from Dios, because Tapik went to save Terasi from the prisons, because Dios had her arrested because she wouldn't take the poison willingly to join the king in death. So the punishment for not willingly taking the poison is death. So yeah, Tapik and Terasi are, along with You Bastard, the only ones not displaced along with Jelly Baby. And they go over to a Phoebe to look for help. Now Jelly Baby is a valley that exists within the 2 rival kingdoms of Sword and the Phoebe. And what happens when you have 2 big warring countries separated by a single smaller country? So what happens when the smaller country disappears? You get those 2 big ones immediately preparing for war. Sword and the Phoebe seem to be really just very like the old Greek states. There's a whole thing with wooden horses that they cannot agree which one had the wooden horses. So in the Phoebe, Tapik and Terasi meet the philosophers. Try to get help, don't quite get help, because philosophers is like, still the whole part with the philosophers, I was trying to guess which one was inspired from which Greek or ancient philosopher. It was like, oh, such a delight. And the entire concept of listeners, love it. But fortunately, they meet Tapik's old buddy, Titter, who he basically grew up with within the Assassin's Guild. Now Titter, technically his family is a family of merchants. They're smugglers, basically. They're merchants, but yeah. And after meeting Titter and they get a little bit drunk together, Tapik has a dream where he meets his ancestors and the founder of Jelly Baby, whose name was Cuffed, and it's a very enlightening conversation that they have. Basically, reality is never as sweet or kind as the myth that kind of like warps it. But it does answer quite a few questions that Tapik has. Tapik alone goes back to try and find Jelly Baby, and he does manage somehow, with You Bastard, to cross through. And I say somehow. Listen, the thing about camels and Jelly Baby is that the camels are the ones who found Jelly Baby. They didn't quite find it though. So what happened with Kuft was that, well, he was a camel thief, and he was run out of the place where he was originally because he sold defunct camels. So he ran away into the desert with his camels, and when the camels got thirsty, they triangulated onto a place that had water. Jelly Baby is itself originally a place outside of time and space, and the camels called it forth. Like, it literally wasn't there, and then it was because of the camels. And Kuft is the one who founded the later empire of Jelly Baby 7,000 years ago. Are we still in part 3? Yeah, we are still in part 3. So the old king then wakes up within his own pyramid, or in his mummified body, which is terrifying. And he teams up with Dil and Jern to go and smash the seals on the other pyramids to gather the other royals, which is also a fantastic scene. And Dios, who has been running on protocols and rituals for an awfully long time, he kind of loses his touch. Like, the thing about Dios is that he cannot handle any sort of change. No change is allowed. He also he never speaks with the past tense. He doesn't like speaking of the past, because every day within Jelly Baby, is the same day reused for 7,000 years. So in part 4, the book of 101 Things a Boy Can Do, that's when Tapik and you bastards step into the mist in between worlds, where they meet the Sphinx with the riddle. And the way that Tapik gets through that riddle, or he passes the Sphinx, is by confusing the Sphinx by being literal minded about the riddle. And confusing the Sphinx long enough so that him and you bastard can just get through over to Jelly Baby. And what is eventually revealed is that Diaz is the one who created the Old Kingdom. He created the gods. And he taught the founder about pyramids, about gods, about protocols, about rituals. And he is the reason for the entire mummification of the royals, about the entire existence of Jelly Baby. In a way. Because what has ended up happening in, when Jelly Baby got thrust out of reality, the gods came back, and they were not like they were. They're not like the rest of the gods of the disc. Like, the gods of the disc kind of make sense. The gods of Jelly Baby do not make sense. They just roam around doing whatever. But also, like, Dios created them. He is the reason they exist, and they don't know him. The thing that happens is that Tapik goes and manages to destroy the Great Pyramid. He does lose his divinity along the way, and Dios disappears, along with the gods, and Jelly Baby is firmly anchored within reality. Tapik and Protasi then find out that they are siblings, which comes as a nasty shock, because they've been falling romantically in love with each other. Protasi, in particular, like, I really feel for her. She, like, she really loves him, and is like, oh no, honey. Just give it some time, give it some rest. You'll figure it out, but you will need time apart. And Tapik, for his part, like, he abdicates to Teresa. He's like, listen, she's more suitable than myself. He goes along with you bastard, and potentially they just go traveling. And the reason why Tapik and Protasi figure out that they are siblings is because Protasi also has a very specific ancestral dream regarding cows. But the thing that I absolutely love about this book is the ending. Like, the red thread throughout this entire book, and it ties in beautifully with the beginning. This entire book is an Ouroboros. It's a loop. Because what ends the very last pages are about Dios. And what has happened is that he has been thrust backwards 7,000 years into the Jelly Baby that was before the camels found it. Dios is trapped within this space and time bubble. He has no idea where he comes from. He has no idea if he has any family, because he doesn't remember everything. Obviously, because he is potentially human. But he doesn't have memory. He cannot remember 7,000 years. So he never remembers that he's been there 7,000 years, or that there was it before. There is no clue how often this has happened with Dios. He is in a stable time loop. So he wakes back up in the Jelly Baby before the kingdom, at the point where the camels call forth Jelly Baby because they are dying of thirst. And Dios watches Kofti arrive with his family, and the only thing that Dios remembers is something about his staff. He first thinks, oh, I shouldn't pick it up, and then he does. So it seems to be tied in with the staff, which is a snake eating its own tail. And he just has a very strong pull to go to this strange bedraggled man he's just seen, and tell him all about gods and rituals and pyramids. I love it. Yet again, this is another book about Discworld novel that I like. Like, I probably should stop saying that, because I think there's pretty much every single Discworld novel I'm gonna like, except for Mort. I'm sorry, I can't. But pyramids, yes. I mean, it does handle quantum, which I cannot quite understand, but I do really appreciate the time loop. I love the time loop. I love the characters. I love Tracy. And yeah. And the next book after this is Guards Guards. So until then, thank you for watching, and I will see you later. Okay? Take care. Bless, bless. I don't know what to do with my hands.